cover. And so I've got this one, I've already saved it. I can just save it as a Word document and then I can come back and edit it or change it anytime. But instead of starting from scratch this time, I can just go to this one and change things around. So I'm just going to delete this background. And I can go over here to my selection pane and find the what I don't want and hit backspace. I'm going to leave, let's see where it is. This one is this vignette layer that I have on. I'm going to leave it there because it's going to work for just about everything. I can delete this girl though also. And I'll try adding in some new pictures. This guy's kind of fun, so I'll try him. You can drag or drop it into your document. Some people say it's a little better if you say insert and add the picture, and that might be true. For some reason too, when I drag and drop it in here, it seems like it's not giving me all the options that I want. So I'm going to go to insert and add picture. And then I'll see the right choices up here is what I should get for pictures. So the cool thing about Microsoft Word is that I can double click on this and go to remove background. And it's just automatically going to strip out the background. This won't work for complex pictures that already have a background, but for simple stuff it'll work really well. And then I also need to go to wrap text, behind text, so I can move him around. And I'm probably going to move him down a bit because I'm going to need some space for the title up front, and then I'll see if this background will work. I chose a background that has a lamp in it because there's a strong light on this guy, and then I'm going to have to see if I can put this behind like that. And then I'll just make this really big. I might want to stretch it out a little bit. Oops. It can get a little bit difficult to select the layers you're trying to select when you've got a bunch of layers in there. And the light is over on this side more, so I really want this to be over here, then maybe the guy over here, because that's going to look more realistic. But already, you know, with very little work, I've stripped out the background of this guy and added a background. That's pretty good cover art already. I could do a lot of fancy things with it. For example, this layer is still in the back, I think. So if I bring it forward, I'm darkening my edges. You can't really notice though. And then the problem is I can't grab the layer that I want because it's behind this vignette layer now. So to fix that, I would have to move it again and then grab the layers, put them where I want them. And I might have to move it pretty far to get the edge of it so that I can make it bigger again. And then I can move this back if I want it to. I don't have to though. It kind of blocks out the light, so maybe I just won't use that this time. I could put my title somewhere. You want to put your title somewhere where it's going to fit against the natural contrast of the background, which is a little hard here because his stomach is pretty light. This is pretty light. There's not really a great space for the title unless maybe I make it a lot smaller, which you can do depending on the genre. So I could make it a lot smaller and then maybe put it up there, which could work. I like to have most of my text centered, but if it's going to be off-centered, then maybe I'd want to put the author name over on this side and the title up over on this side, because then there's a little bit more balance between the elements, but I would use that with caution. It's almost always better to just put the text in the middle and centered. But since this cover is kind of off-centered already, I'm going to go ahead and leave it this way. I could choose Bebas New. It's a great multi-purpose font. It works for nonfiction and fiction. It's clean and simple. I'll be able to make this a little bit bigger. But it's a little bit too clean for this particular cover. I'm probably going to want something a little bit rougher. This is kind of like a Fight Club sort of cover, I guess. I have tons of fonts. You'll want to find fonts that are going to fit your genre. This looks kind of like the car racing movies. Puma Oblique. Choose fonts with caution. Don't use something too decorative, but you want something that definitely makes it obvious what genre you're in. That's a pretty nice kind of rough font. I'll get rid of this gradient. Gradient is great for something that kind of looks clean and shiny, sort of like metal, but if I'm using a really rough font, it's going to look a little bit funny. So I'll take the gradient off and just change it back to white. And then I think I could go to texture if I wanted to change the texture. And that's kind of interesting. So I could do a solid fill, no fill. That's only going to work on the box, I guess, not on just the text. I could do some special stuff, glow and edges. But I won't right now. We'll play more with text later. For now, I just want to get something that looks okay. I can make this a little bit bigger. I wouldn't normally have my title up that high, but I also want the title to kind of fit in with the picture, so this sort of works. The art is really good. You want the title to kind of fit in with the art and not crowd it or overshadow it. Like you've got to decide what works first, and almost always the picture is what gets the attention. The picture is what makes them feel the emotion. So you want them to feel the emotion right away and let the picture speak for itself, and less nonfiction. And then you just want big clean text that tells readers what's going on. For fiction, the picture catches the attention. The title and the author name, they're not that important for fiction. It's really just the kind of the mood that you're setting with your cover design. Because if it's the fonts that and the cover and the art that tells them kind of what the book is about or what the genre is, so you don't have to communicate very much with the title, although a tagline can be really nice. You want to give them enough information to make a good purchasing decision and say, okay, I want to buy this book. But you can do that without actually giving away very much. That works okay. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get these two closer together. So in that case, what I have to do is just duplicate this layer. The other name's a little bit small. I could go bigger. That's a little big. And I want to make sure my box isn't too big, because then it's going to get hard to move them around when they're on top of each other. But I could do that, and I could just duplicate the layer. And that way I'll be able to set the spacing however I want. And if I select both those layers, I can just use the arrow key to shift them down and get them where I want them. The arrow key sometimes will be easier than trying to drag and drop things around with the mouse, like when you're doing very small, a couple spaces. And I still don't love the title up here. I'm tempted to move it like somewhere else that it'll fit, like down there. I can make this guy bigger. He could go over here. And sometimes you're going to want to do that because if everything is small, you're not going to have that immediate impact. So this cover would actually probably be stronger if I do just make him really big. But I kind of like having more of his muscles in it. And there's actually enough darkness right through here that if I did it just right, I don't know if I really want him like this big, but actually it probably does work better that way. So then I could just move this over here a little bit, make it smaller, or I could just center it and just go right over him. And that's going to look okay too. I might want to put a little bit more of a drop shadow in there just to make sure it stands out. And I don't love that it's over the body because it makes it harder to read. But that's probably the best combination of images because that way he's really big, pretty bold. This one, because I'm undecided, I'd probably make a couple versions and then I would ask for feedback. So I do one kind of like this, and I'm just going to save it as a PDF. You want to save it as a PDF, but you also want to save it as a Word document because you're going to want to come back and edit it later. And sometimes I would want to save 2 Word documents, so I'd save 1 Word document like this. Cover B1. I'm just saving it as Word. And then I'd go back to my other option. Like if I wanted to try some different fonts. With the fonts, it's not a big deal because I could actually, if I wasn't sure what font I wanted to use, I'd just be taking this title, duplicating it, making another layer, and then I have all these over here. So I could change this one to some other font. Usually you want to have, you probably want a few different font samples if you're having trouble making decisions. That one's not bad. So then I could hide this one and just use an alternative that says tit instead of title. So if I make this a little smaller like I had it in the beginning, it would work well if this guy's in front of the text. Because of the way that I added the pictures and stripped out the background, it's hard to get this layer to go in front of the text. You would have to make it a different kind of layer. I think it's a shape layer. And then it's hard to strip out the background. You can do it with other pictures, but not so much for this one. So I might do something like that, and that way I've got 2 different versions of this cover, so I could ask for some feedback, I could see what people like, and then based on that I'll make some final choices. It's easier to see once you've got them saved as JPEGs too, and then you can really compare them side by side. You can post both of them on Facebook and see which people like better. Generally, if you have a figure, unless you're doing something really mysterious or far away, like a scene, like that other cover I made, this one, where you really need the whole figure in the big scene to kind of show how mysterious it is. Otherwise, having a close-up can work better. These are showing square, which is kind of interesting because I saved them as 6x9, so actually they will be this shape. When you open them up as a PDF, that's what the shape they're going to be, is more like this. So I'm going to save that one as cover B2. I'll save it as a PDF also. What you're going to do with the PDFs is run them through a conversion tool. I made one a year or 2 ago that I had on my site, but they're actually pretty hard to update. Things change all the time. So now I usually will just Google, convert doc to JPEG or convert PDF to JPEG. This is just one online tool. I'm not sure if this one will even work. I haven't tested it yet. But there's lots of them. If you test a couple, some people will say that their PDF shifted after they saved it, but usually when you save for PDF, it should look just how you saved it. So I'm just trying to upload a PDF there, but it's really large because you saved these big pictures. The other thing I didn't mention is when you're getting these pictures, your cover is 2700 by 1800 pixels because this is 6 by 9 at 300 dpi. So I want to make sure all of my pictures that I download are roughly big enough. It doesn't matter if it's exact, but like this one's 1600. They're all probably about 15 or 1600 because I know that's a decent size. I can scale it. I can make it a little bigger. It'll start getting blurry the bigger you stretch it out. So you don't want to start with something that's like 600 and then stretch it out to fill because it'll be blurry. But if you're only going, if you're not going that far, it'll work. And then you would just use this. I'm not sure if it's going to work because it might take forever to upload, but I can convert my file to, and I'm going to look for JPEG because JPEG is kind of standard for ebook cover files. Oh, and then I have to put in my email. So this is supposedly going to email me the file that I want. That's how a lot of them work. And it'll upload, it'll download, and it'll email it to me. And then when I go to my email, I can just download it, and I'll have a JPEG cover that's ready to use for Kindle or Smashwords or Draft Digital or any other program. So I'm going to stop this video here. I'm going to make some more covers in the next video. And maybe we'll show you some other things you can do in Microsoft Word that we haven't started looking into yet.